Welcome, fellow seekers of challenge and triumph, to the SufferSooner podcast. Join us on a journey where ordinary souls embark on extraordinary endeavors. From the relentless grind of gravel to the punishing gauntlet that is triathlon, we've tasted our fair share of suffering. So fellow endurance warriors, let's lace up our shoes, strap on our goggles, and dive headfirst into the challenge, knowing that with every step, stroke, and pedal forward, we grow stronger together. What's going on, guys? It's episode 38. We're talking to Serena, fresh off of Ironman Chattanooga. So we all saw the news. The swim was canceled, unfortunately, and fortunately, because there was a lot of debris and probably E. coli and all sorts of nastiness in the river. So I think Ironman did a good thing canceling the swim for you guys, but it didn't save you from getting wet all day. It was more of a rainy day, all day type affair. So, but yeah, Serena did good. She finished the bike, she finished the run, and she got her name called out. She's officially an Ironman on the results.
Chalked it up.
So
nice.
So
Serena, good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. How you feeling?
I still say I'm a brick man, not an Iron Man. I feel indifferent, I guess, about the swim being canceled. I think there may be a photo out there that I sent to Travis. I own a shirt that says the swim is canceled. Yeah. I very often wear it to transition as I get myself ready for a triathlon, which tells you how much I enjoy swimming. And I certainly did not need a bacterial infection or to be run over by a log. But at the same time, I also drug myself to Masters for 3 months, twice a week. And I worked so hard at it. And I knew that this was probably going to be my one and done. And was it worth all of it to not be able to do the swim? So I don't know how I feel about it. I feel accomplished that I spent 11 hours sopping wet. Who needs to swim when you can just swim on your bike and run through the rain all day? But I'm so thankful to be finished. And I really, as I look back on it, am happy, and I think I'll really treasure the time in training. That feels more valuable to me at this point than the race itself.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's like, I know there was a lot of back and forth chatter in the, all the groups and everything online about the swim being canceled, and should it have been, should it not have been? I think no doubt it was the right call, as you said, Travis. But yeah, I can see where you're saying, Serena. It's like you kind of feel indifferent about it. That's because as the athlete, you're amped up, you're ready to do the whole event. You spend all the time training for it, and then to sort of get that pulled out from under you, literally the day before, or whatever it was, and it's got to be tough. But it's not like the rest of the event is a cakewalk. It's like if anything, especially at Chat, the swim is one of the easier portions because it is the downriver swim, and I think that was even a lot of people online are like, well, the swim. I mean, quite honestly, a lot of people just kind of floated, and I don't know that easy. But I mean, the reality is it's not like the rest of the race is a piece of cake, and it's a lot of work. And like you said, the conditions with the rain, pretty much the whole day. And some of the pictures I saw, people were just absolutely drenched, and it was not exactly hot. It was kind of chilly from what I understood. So yeah, it's not like it was a piece of cake, like I said. So great job on the accomplishment. I think you absolutely should feel accomplished. I mean, it's there's nothing easy about a 100-mile bike ride in a marathon. Nothing at all.
Well, and the trickle down from the swim being canceled, really, and the weather probably had the biggest effect on my day. Because they didn't have a swim, they did a time trial bike start, but they didn't let people self-seed themselves. So you were there, you started based on what your bib number was. Well, my flight, because of the hurricane, was delayed, and I didn't get there until Saturday morning. So I was one of the last people to check in. So 1,500 people started before I did. I think I was 1636, which I've never seen a sweeper before in an Ironman race, and I saw the sweeper that day.
Wow.
And the other thing I told Travis was the bike was not what I had hoped for, or really what I had trained for. I had to stop far more than I wanted to, but I think part of the problem was I had to go to the bathroom 3 times in the first hour, and
Mhm.
Travis can give you his reasoning on why that happened. But and I was just so cold all day that that was not something I had prepared for either.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think
Yeah. So when you start, to allude to that fact, we spent all this time heat training, right? Heat
Mhm.
adaptation, because Chattanooga is kind of notorious for being, upper 80s to 90-degree weather. So it's going to be hot. It's not going to be, the surface of the sun, but it will be hotter than, most of the time. So we spent all this time heat acclimatizing and building up your plasma volume, which is what you do. Well, plasma is mostly made up of, water. And
Mhm.
so when your body gets cold, like it did on race day, what happens is your body goes, oh, well, I don't need to cool myself. I need to keep myself warm. So what I need to do is start shunting all of this water, this fluid out of my body. Instead of sweating it out, I need to get rid of it, because it's, your body's sitting there trying to preserve its, self and keep you alive. It's looking at all this water like, I don't want to heat all this. That's the waste of energy. I need to get rid of it. And so what you start doing is you start going to the bathroom a lot. And it happens to me too, like whenever I do a cold race, because I do so much training outside in the summer, like you just get every 5 miles, you're like, oh my gosh, my bladder's full again. Like, are you kidding me? And so like, and of course there's some triathletes are going to be out there just go on your bike. Like, bro, don't.
Mhm. Yeah.
Just don't.
Never thought
That's
about that. Yeah.
unless you are in the front, sure. If you're
Yeah.
leading it, if you're Sam Long or you're, a
Yeah,
professional,
but then you're fast enough, you probably don't have to go. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
you're probably done before you even have to go. You're like, oh yeah, hour later I'll be on the run. It's no big
yeah.
deal. But I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing, right? Like if you're fast and you're trying for a podium position, yes, I understand, doing things at all costs. But if you're an age grouper, don't do that. Like, come on, man. You just pull over. Like,
So-
you're going to be happier. Everything's going to be better. Your mechanic, whoever works on your bike, is going to be happier that you do that.
You don't need a new saddle. That's what I kept thinking
Yeah.
about. Like
Yeah.
this, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I had to stop 3 times in the first hour, which was certainly not the plan.
So
Which is understandable. I mean, your body's just, like I said, it's just trying to keep itself alive. So yeah. But, yeah. Go for it, Danny.
Yeah, I
I
was
keep
just gonna
interrupting you.
no, it's fine. I just because one of the questions I had is, with it being cooler, and you talk about, obviously all the stops you had to make, but Travis and I were talking about this maybe last week, but we were talking about your nutrition. So how did this have an effect on your nutrition? I don't know if you were if you were doing nutrition primarily through liquid, but with it being cooler temperatures, obviously you're not drinking as much because you are going to the bathroom 3 times in the first hour. Like the last thing you want to do is drink a liter of water an hour like you would on a hot day. So how did it impact your nutrition? Did you have to make adjustments in the middle of the race, and how did that play out for you?
So that was the other thing that happened during this race that did not go to plan. I
Yeah.
was planning on it being warmer. So Travis and I had talked about that I was going to try to drink a bottle an hour that had about 200 calories in it. He could probably
Mhm.
tell you what the number of carbs was. And then I was going to stop at my special needs, and I had bought some just cheap Amazon bottles that I was going to put in my bottles on my bike and surrender those bottles. And I froze them. They were in like one of those silver hot cold bags. And then I was planning to take about 100 calories of solid nutrition during that race every hour.
Okay.
Well, when I got to my special needs bag at mile, whatever it was, 67, I opened it up and those bottles were as hard as a rock.
Still frozen. Yeah. Figures.
And I wasn't about to surrender my expensive metal water bottles that I had on my bike. I was like, well, now I got to make a new plan. So they did not, I took whatever solid nutrition I had in that bag and kind of shoved it in my pockets and put it on my bike. And I had already had an extra hour on me when I started that bike. So I decided I was going to use coarse liquids and just put that in my front bottle, the mortal hydration, and try to make up the difference by eating solid calories. And I was able to do it. I don't know if eventually that's why I had GI issues on the run, but I was like, my math brain is now going like, how much more do I have to
Yeah.
eat? Do I want to do this every 15 minutes versus I was trying to eat about every 30? Um, but I made it off the bike alive. And I was really, really happy that I felt pretty good coming off the bike. Like I didn't feel terribly fatigued. My muscles weren't bothering me, which was really where I struggled during training. I never felt like um, cardiovascularly I was
Mhm.
fatigued. It was always just that my muscles were starting to get tired and sore
Yeah.
by mile hour 5 or 6. So I must have done something right.
Were you taking the course gels too? I think they had Morton's, right? Yeah, Morton's there.
No, I
No, it was just your
Travis
solids.
and Travis
And
will
I know you
laugh at
don't
me.
like yeah,
I hate them,
yeah,
and
yeah. You're not eating it for
that'll
the
come into
taste,
play
right?
later too. I mean, so much so that the taste on my tongue makes me kind of gag.
Sure. Yeah, I hear
It's
you.
like like Serena is the person who is like, if it's too sweet, she ain't eating it.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm like, oh, this is
I
sweet. I like this. Like, ooh,
love the
sugar water.
Morton's,
Let me drink some more. I'm
right?
like, oh, is it a full gallon of syrup? Let's go.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, the Mortons are the
no.
best. But no, the one thing you meant I heard you say, the mortal hydration, and, what I also wonder is if maybe you had maybe too much salt going at one time maybe because, I mean, you think about how cool the weather is, you're not sweating near as much, the electrolytes aren't leaving your body near as much. You can actually get to a point where you get too much salt in your gut, and then it creates kind of a problem as well, and it just, it's they call it the fourth discipline of triathlon for a reason. I mean, nutrition is the it is the thing that will end your day faster than anything else. All the training in the world is great, but to your point about like you didn't ever feel like you were fatigued, it was just your muscles, like just it. I think that the nutrition is a huge part of it. When you have to start straying off the plan and you're just taking whatever you can, that can really cause some problems later on for sure. So
Well, and that's one of the things that Travis and I did as we went through training. I bought some Mortal Hydration and I
mhm,
bought some of those Martin gels and I made myself see if I could hold them
mhm,
down during training just in case something like this happened.
yeah,
If all hell breaks loose and I'm stuck
mhm,
with course nutrition, what can I shovel down and keep down? So I was thankful that we had done that and I knew that I could hold down that Mortal Hydration.
good, good. Yeah, and hopefully they didn't have the extra salty one there because that would have been miserable.
Yeah.
It's always just a
That
regular.
salty margarita is salty.
Yes,
It
it
is
Yeah.
is.
very salty.
Yeah.
So,
So,
but yeah, I mean, it's the thing with nutrition, and I think, having me, and Danny, you're kind of like, you kind of do the sugar water, but you don't do
mhm,
it to the extent that I do. And then
right.
Serena is just totally anti sugar water. But it just shows that there's, three different ideas of how to, do nutrition. And, you can still have these, you can still pull these events off and
Mhm,
do stuff. It's just about, it's not like, I was never, I'm not somebody who's dogmatic and just be like, oh, Serena, you have to do, sugar water that I, the maltodextrin glucose that I drink. And it's like, no, I was like, as long as you get 200 calories from your liquid stuff
mhm,
and 100 calories from solid, just let's call that good.
yeah,
And she could adhere to that till, the whole day if she wanted to, or,
right.
she's done that on, Unbound or any gravel events. So, it's just once you find something that you can tolerate, just kind of differing the parameters. And then of course, planning for the worst case. Like, I mean, that was one of the things we talked about early on was like, okay, Serena, you go over these train tracks, you lose all your bottles. What are you going to do?
Mhm,
You know, all right, can you handle course nutrition, or do you have to go and find those bottles that are skidding across the road?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and especially if it's why you have to have multiple nutrition plans. And to your point, Serena, you're trying to do the math in your head, as to, well, how many dews do I need? How many gels do I need? How many bottles of what do I need? It's like, yeah, I mean, when you have it all planned out, you say, well, it's one bottle an hour plus one gel. Like you said, that's easy. But when your brain starts to get the fog of, 70 miles under it and 100 miles under it, and you're trying to do the math of like, how many gels did I have? When is the last time? Like it gets really tough. And especially if you, like you said, your two bottles are frozen. Now your nutrition and the hydration side of it is shot. And it's like, well, I don't know. Did I take three gels yet? I don't remember. And so It's
You're like, all I've been doing is shaking gels, but I can't remember if I did the last one or like if I should be a bottle down. Yeah. I mean, that stuff is real. I mean, that's why like towards the middle of races that are long, like, you know, my Garmin will go off and tell me to eat or drink, and I just do it. And people are like, you know, if it's on the middle of the hill, middle of a downhill, whatever. And it's like, if I wait, I'll forget.
Yeah.
Because I won't know, and then I'll be behind.
Well, I tend to just take the gel anyway, which is also a bad thing to do, because if you take too many, then you end up in the porta john. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Well, so that's something I did too, Travis, is I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, I set up my bike computer, and every hour it tells me to finish a bottle, and every 45 minutes it tells me to eat. So at the very least, I pretty religiously follow that. But in this case, I added a gel in. I doubled the amount of gels that second half.
Yeah, but that seems smart. I mean, that was a great thing. I mean, like, just to have the wherewithal to plan that you're like, oh, this bike ride should take me this long, but I'm going to plan an extra hour. And then you're like, I'll plan an extra hour in special needs. And it's not like the bike didn't take you. I'm going to look here real quick. The bike didn't take you. It took you about exactly 6 hours, give her 6 hours and 20 minutes, which is pretty much what I figured you were probably going to be in the 5:30 to 6 hour mark. And so you had an extra, you know, you could have been out there for almost 7-8 hours, you know, if you needed to, with the amount of food and if it was hot or whatever. So, I mean, losing the bottles to being frozen, I mean, planning ahead and adding that just buffer in was just, that was clutch for sure. I think that definitely saved your race for sure.
How so the bike, I mean, you did great on the bike and you got through it despite the challenges. So how'd you do transition wise and then on into the run? Talk to us about that.
I want to talk just a second about the bike.
Yeah.
Okay. So they changed the bike course about a month out.
Okay.
When you all did Chattanooga, you went south into Georgia and did a 2-loop course. I went north on a highway, which you will not see Serena riding on a highway ever again. It's a big no thank you for me, especially in the rain. I think everybody knows that I'm just a little scared. Safety seems like my highest priority. So
it's rightful concern. I don't know if you saw, Serena, there was somebody got hit by a vehicle on the highway.
Yeah.
They were on the course, but
and the other part too is so you have cyclists in the left-hand lane of a 2-lane highway, or, you know, 4-lane highway. It goes 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes back. So they're in the left lane. And then you have all the traffic in the right lane, right? And so riders are instructed to ride to the right, and you pass on the left. And so you have, you know, Serena's riding out there, you have pros riding out there, then you have like first timers who spent most of their time on a trainer and never thought they would be riding on a freaking highway, or riding right next in the rain next to cones, and there's semis just ripping it up, you know, because it's a highway, it's 65 or 75 or whatever the speed limit is. They're just hauling, and you're getting sprayed and blown around. Like, it would have been different if they moved the traffic to the inner lanes, and then, you know, all the riders could ride right, you know, next to the rumble strips. It would be a little bit more like the safety aspect would be a little bit better. It'd be on the person passing that would feel most of the spray and the air disturbances from semis. So it's just the way that you have to ride that center section and just getting past, because you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to ride right. Like, it just, you know, I think it would be almost, you know, pretty terrifying especially if you're just going. I mean, you're only going 20 miles an hour, and these guys are going 60 miles an hour. So,
and it was a 3-loop course, so it was really crowded that first loop. I mean, there were several points where we were 4 across. So then you have to judge, should I be number 2 or number 3 based on how fast everybody else is going? And is there a pro on my far left? And I still need to make room for them. And I mean, honestly, there was no way I was going to be descending at 30 miles an hour in my aero bars with semis whizzing by and rain. that was not something I was willing to do. I think that there were plenty of people who did and had a terrific bike, and it was fast. I mean, I don't discount that. It just, for me, it wasn't the course that I was looking for, and it just didn't feel real safe to me. And I could see that course crushing people's souls if it was hot and sunny, because
Mhm.
there is not one drop of shade out
Yeah.
there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just open highway.
Yeah, I'd seen several people talk about it, and they've said exactly what you just said, Serena, is that it was a very fast course, and on a clear day and in a hot day, it would have been just brutal. And yeah, fast, that's great, but to your point, I mean, given conditions of the day and the fact that, there's so much rain, and I get it, they can't predict the rain. But I do have some concerns though about like the safety aspect that you just mentioned, because even on a clear day, and Travis, we talked about this too, like that speed differential and having 40-mile-an-hour difference between the fastest bike and an average car that's driving through there is huge. And that wind gust alone, I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of people out there that had solid disc wheels. I can't imagine trying to handle the bike with that kind of a wind gust going by you. So I wonder if they'll make a change again next year to try to get it off the highway. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to speculate too much, but it just seems like what you're saying, Serena, the safety side of this, it's not really in the character of Ironman. They're usually really, really big on the safety aspect, and doesn't feel like that was the case. As I said, I know there was at least one report of a rider that got hit, and that's, it's one thing when riders crash, that's going to happen in a race, but you should never feel like you're going to get hit by a car on a closed course. That's a pretty tough situation.
Well, and in my mind too, I was thinking, what if one of these cars is just so mad that somebody ahead of them is going slow and they decide they're going to come into the bike course to do a pass?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I
Can't control that. I mean,
can't handle that.
Yeah.
I mean, one person has to get road rage and decide to just swerve into all these cyclists.
Yeah. And they will. I mean, that do this enough times, that will eventually happen, because there are just idiot drivers out there. Because we see it when we just go do a training ride. There are enough people that drive, they don't care about, and they don't think they'll ever get caught if they hit a cyclist, because they don't think it's going to happen. So I agree. I think Ironman really needs to take a look at that and decide if there's something different that can be done next year. I just think that putting riders especially in an aero position that close to cars is just not a wise choice. But I don't envy the position of these race directors. I mean, they've got a tough job as it is, but maybe there were just no other options. I don't know. So so 3 loops of that. I can only imagine that third loop. You're like, thank God this is almost over.
This is almost over.
Yeah.
And then you're probably just going the whole time going like, man, don't get hit on this last loop because you made it this far. Like,
yeah,
just hold it together. So then
exactly.
you get done with all that, and then you're on to the run. So how was the run?
How was transition? I'm just curious how the transition, because so a couple of things. You mentioned the time trial start and that the bike course was crowded. And that's another thing. Like I have to think that transition area was chaos, because you've got people finishing so close to each other. Like there's just not enough time to spread people out across the swim and the bike. So I'm just curious, like, I know you don't have another Ironman to compare it to, but you've been in 70.3s. You know how transitions can be. Was it chaotic? Was it just normal?
It was. There were probably 30 women in that tent when I was in there, and I was at the back of the race. I mean, I told you, as I was coming back in on the last loop, I saw the sweeper going out. So that's how close to the back I was. It was fun.
Yeah, you started your bike ride at 9:40 a.m. If you would have swam in the river, you would have been, they start at 7:30, you would have been 40 minutes. So you would have been 8:15. So you were almost an hour and 30 minutes off of being where you should have been, which is ridiculous.
And I knew that, and I was planning for it, but it was sort of demoralizing. So I went into the tent, and I again went into this race just wanting to finish, just wanting to hear my name called, and I was willing to do what was necessary to accomplish that. I was not trying to race. So I mean, I changed my clothes, I put on fresh socks, I had a visor, I had a snack, I put eye drops in my eyes. I mean, I did everything I could possibly do to make myself comfortable in transition. So I was not blowing through there by
Was
any
that
means.
the plan despite regardless of the weather? Your plan was to go in and change. Okay. Yeah. Because we thought the same thing a year ago when we said, hey, being in a run kit that you're comfortable in is far more important than whatever 2 or 3 minutes you're losing in transition. So
Mhm.
smart, very smart call. Yeah.
And Travis and I had talked about, regardless of what everyone else was doing on both the bike and the run, I needed to go out of there in control.
Mhm.
And it was really hard on the bike because I have a tendency to spike my power going out of town,
Mhm.
because you guys have trained me now in a bike race that we go with the leaders. Let's go find a wheel. And I knew I could not do that. So I got passed and passed and passed and passed and passed on the bike going out of town. So much so that the friend that was with me sent me a message on my Garmin, like, "Are you okay? You're going pretty slow." But I also, Travis and I had talked about, I have done Chattanooga 70.3 twice before, and
Mhm.
I knew that coming out of transition, you have to take this highway out of town, and I literally call it the highway to hell. One year, the first year I did it, it was really hot that day, and there's no shade, and it's slightly uphill, and it will crush your soul.
Yeah.
So Travis and I talked about, like, I need you to walk out of transition, Serena. I need your heart rate to come down, and I need you to be in a decent state of mind when you start this run. And if you try to hammer out of there, it will break your soul. So I did that despite what
Yeah.
everybody else was
Yeah.
doing. And marched out of there and just, again, tried to, was able to start over on my nutrition, which was a good reset for me. I carried my own nutrition with me again because I knew that I did not love the Martin gels. That
Mhm.
will come into play later, but I had a great first 10 miles of that run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so one of the things I learned training last year for this was, like you said, being in control. I think that's really good advice, Travis. Like, be in control when you start the run, because that it's real easy for that first mile or two to just your legs. You feel good because you're off the bike, and you think your legs are in a really good spot, and then you end up cooking those first couple miles, when you should really be taking in nutrition and like just topping yourself off to get ready for the next 24 miles. And so.
Yep.
So I think a lot of people, and to your point, you probably watched a lot of people pass. I'd be willing to bet you ended up catching a lot of those people before the end of the race because they didn't do what you did. So yeah, good stuff. So you got through the first 10 miles, and then what?
So again,
And then you
I
were
was
running
so,
up that
Oh
hill.
my gosh.
Making it,
exactly. I was
Yeah.
so very thankful that I had done this course before, and I
Yeah.
had you all to lean on. This race was really broken into 4 sections for me always. It was that first 8-ish miles, and then you get to a big hill that's in the park there,
Barton, right?
and
Barton
into
Hill.
the
Yes.
area of right as you come out of the park, there's like a residential area, and it has a huge hill, and it has an aid station at the top. And I knew I was going to walk that. And then I knew I needed to go across the bridge. And then I knew that Barton was there. So
Yeah.
there was that first section, and then there was the hill section, and then the country club section, which I knew if I could just make it there, that there was going to be some places where I was going to have to walk, and I should walk. So I really just wanted to get there. And that's exactly what I did. And on those walking sections, I would eat and just try to collect myself. And then I knew at mile 13, I was sopping wet again. So I stopped at my special needs bag. I changed my socks. I got some more gels and things, and went back out on the highway to hell. And I really started to have some serious GI issues at that point. I didn't know whether I was going to throw up or have to use the porta potty. And I hopped from porta potty to porta potty from about like mile 13 to about 16. And I have raced enough that I know that when that's happening, it's often because I have gotten myself out of whack as far as electrolytes. And again, I've raced enough to know that the solution usually is to stop taking solids at that point. Try to get I start eating salt. So I had some salt taps with me. And at that point, I think it was starting to get dark, and they brought out warm chicken broth, which I have
Yeah.
never had before.
Yep.
And I was like, well, this is better than the sugar water that's cold that's running down the front of me. So
has
I started
protein.
taking
Yeah.
a salt tab, the chicken broth, and then one of their Martin gels, and just like gulped all of it down in one gulp so I could get the Martin gel down. And by mile 16, my body finally came around and I didn't feel like I was going to throw up anymore.
Yeah.
So I ran back through the park and then out towards Barton. And I knew that it was going to be hard at that point. I turned on my light. I was just ready to kind of march through that back half of the marathon, knowing that I was probably going to have to walk. And I was fine with that. And that's exactly what happened about mile 22, 23. I couldn't pick my legs up anymore, even really for the downhills. So I was really pleased, despite all of that, that I made it to mile 22 before I really felt like I couldn't run anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's marathons right there. It's no matter what you do, that mile 22 to 24 section is just excruciating.
Yeah. It's the wall. Where in the run did it click for you that you had this, that you were going to finish? Like, you know what I mean? Like that moment, did you get that emotional, like sort of like,
I knew from the moment I got off my bike that I could do that marathon.
Awesome.
She's like, after I survived that grueling bike ride, this run's going to be cake.
I knew that no matter what happened, I could walk it.
Oh yeah. I guess that's true. Cause I was asked that question because for me, it was, I think it was somewhere around like mile 17 or 18. I think that's when is that about where you hit Barton the second time? About 18? Yeah.
No, I think maybe that's the bridge.
Is that the bridge?
Back
yeah.
to the other
side. Somewhere in there. It was somewhere in there where I knew it, like I knew I was not only was I going to finish it, like I knew I was going to finish it then. Like I knew I was going to finish it anyway, but like that was the moment where I'm like, I know I got this. And then it was sort of that emotional reset that gave me like a little bit of energy. And so that's why I was wondering if you had a similar experience where it was like, did the emotion of I got this, did it sort of help sort of clear your head and then get you through some of that challenge around? Because like mile 22, like you guys both said, I mean, that's in any marathon, that's the wall. Like that last 4 to 6 miles is always the wall. And so you kind of need like something to give you that energy to just get through it, that last bit, because you know you can do it, but it's like, man, the emotional side of that can be really powerful. So,
well, and for me, I was really surprised. I never had the emotional breakdown of, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't do this. I always knew that I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And I could, which is different because I've had some really hard gravel races this year where I wanted to quit or I thought I should quit. And that never happened to me in Ironman. And I'm not really sure why. Like maybe it was because I had planned that those last few miles were going to be really hard, that I was going to have to walk. And I just knew that's what I was going to do. So I was just going to keep on going till I was done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with gravel, it's just that unpredictability. Like you don't know what the next section holds. Like it could just be smooth champagne gravel and you're like, oh, I can finish the last 20 miles on this. Or it's like fresh laid, chunky. And you're just like, oh, great. 10 miles of 800 watts of this. Are you kidding me? Like, oh, yeah. Like gravel's just, with Ironman, it's, you know, like to think about it, it's just like, as long as you can survive, like you survive the swim, you're like, okay, I only got one more thing to do, the bike. Okay, I can do that. And then you get to the end of the bike and you're like, okay, now if I walk, I'll finish. If I run, I'll finish a little faster. And so like, I think, the positive mental aspect, I think, was always there for me with Ironman. I figured when I did it, it was just, as long as I could get through the bike without having a major mechanical, I was going to finish no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to get into the debate of like one is harder than the other around gravel.
No, I'm not saying it's,
I'm not saying you did, but what I'm getting at is I don't want to get in that debate, but I do think that what you just said, Serena, it's like you've done enough of these gravel events where you're like, I don't know if I'm going to get through this. Like, I think the knowing that Ironman is set up in a way where you're not going to round a corner and see a 20% grade in front of you that you got to somehow climb up on a bike. And you're not going to run a course where it's like, oh my gosh, I got to go into this off trail, ultra running style. Like it doesn't have that variability to it. It's a very predictable course. And like, as long as you can execute and you can function, you're going to finish it. It's not about, can you finish it now? It's about, can I execute my race plan? So I think it just has a different way of sort of the perspective that you have going into it. And I'm not saying one's harder than the other. That's not what that's about. But I do think the gravel events that you've done, Serena, have prepared you just as well mentally for this race as anything, because you can get over just about any challenge the course could have possibly thrown at you. Like there's nothing that course was going to give you that you couldn't get through. And I think that had to, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but it just feels like that had to help in some ways, because like you said, you never questioned your ability to complete this thing. It sounds like you had pretty high confidence that this was going to get done. So.
Yeah, I did. And that's one of the things about Ironman. While I don't love looping races, I knew exactly what the second half of that marathon was because I'd done it.
Yeah.
And
just got to do it one more time.
Feels like, and Travis and I talked about this before the race, they want you to finish. They want you to come back. They want you to pay more money. There are a million volunteers out there. There's a million aid stations. It's so well supported. And gravel just isn't that. I mean, gravel is you against the course and what can you bring to it? Ironman feels more to me like we're going to put this course out here in front of you and what can we do to help you get across it?
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. Feels a little different.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to put it. And I don't think one's better than the other. They're just different things. And I think you're right. I think the fact that Ironman is set up that way, I actually enjoy it. It makes it a more enjoyable experience, in my opinion, because the support is there. And you're right about it. And by the way, the Chattanooga, I can't compare because I haven't done other Ironman events, but the volunteers at Chattanooga have to be the best. They have to be, because I know how they were when we had them. And hearing what you just said, it just sounds like it's almost the exact same experience, like just phenomenal people that are there to help you at every aid station any way you need it. So.
Who stood out in the rain.
Hours. That's right.
Yeah, it's one thing to be racing in the rain, but like to tell somebody to stand there and just hand stuff to people, like that's hard. That's the true like dedication and the true heroes for sure. Because like I don't mind working out in the rain, but if you told me like, hey, I'm just gonna have you stand out in the rain for 30 minutes, it's gonna be the longest 30 minutes of my life. So
all right. So when you cross the final bridge for the last time and you got to come down the bridge and then around the corner and then down into the finisher chute, just kind of go through that real quick. How did that feel?
So I was so lucky. I have had some friends since I moved to Parkville who have been my running partners, who have, I mean, any crazy thing one of us wants to do, the other ones are like, what can we do to support you? My friend Steph and Tara both flew to Chattanooga to do this race with me because my kids had a million activities here. Tara is a 5 or 6 time Ironman herself. She hasn't raced in many years, but I mean, knows what's happening. My friend Steph qualified for the Boston Marathon last year and wasn't able to do it because she had hip surgery a month ago. And I was a little jealous of them because every time I would see them, they looked like they were having the best time. They had city bikes. They were riding in the gravel. I think Tara at one point got them to a flooded sewage plant. They made friends with all the people out there. But Steph was waiting for me on that bridge when I came across, and she walked. I was walking at that point, and she walked all the way through town with me. And it was just, we just chatted about their day. And it was such a nice relief of just my brain wanting to be done. So I was so thankful that she was there. And then I said, Steph, I think I'm going to run now. And she's like, oh, that's amazing, but I can't run. So I turned the corner and I came across. And the other thing I knew from having raced Ironman before was I didn't want my finish line picture to be me looking at my watch. And I knew that there was a bell there. And I was just determined to soak up every minute of that carpet. And that's what I did. I marched across there slowly. Tara was there. I rang the bell. I came across and I was just, I just felt really accomplished. And it was exactly the day I had planned for, but for some snafus on the bike. And as Travis had told me before, I collected my Ironman badge on all the days that we were riding up and down interurban or we were running in English Landing Part. I just showed up to the race to pick up my medal.
Or the 3 months of the 3 months of going to masters twice a week
Right.
and just getting, Doug's our master coach, and he puts us through the paces. So it's not like she got off easy. She was swimming hard every single week, doing these master workouts. So like, yeah, she definitely earned it for sure.
Well, I'm glad you rang
training.
the bell. I'm glad you rang the bell because
I didn't even see it. I didn't even know it was a thing.
I didn't either.
Felt so bad when I was like, oh, there's a bell. Are you kidding me?
But I was watching the tracker most of the day, checking in and just see kind of how you were doing, and so I knew when you were getting close to the final timing mat right before you come down that hill, and so I pulled up YouTube and was watching the live feed, and I couldn't see you ring the bell because I think it's far enough. It's in the dark shot of the video, but saw you walk across, point to the sky, and put your head. Like, that was great. I could tell you were like, there's nothing quite like that emotional sort of like release of the finish line, and like it's just done. Thank goodness it's done. So I could see all that relief on your face even in that video, and that was really awesome to see. And congratulations on it. So job well done.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it does. It feels like a real relief now. And at the time, the training was such a slog, and I was so tired and so hungry. But I was telling Travis just now, I feel kind of lost without it now. So now we got to pick what I'm going to do next.
So it's funny you say that, because when I was watching the video and kind of tracking you throughout the day, I found myself, like, especially watching the video for people that were finishing, because I watched probably 2 or 3 minutes before you were there, because I didn't want to miss you, because I knew about where you were. And then I watched a few minutes after you finished, and just watching all those folks cross the line, I started kind of missing it a little bit. And all I could think about was what Travis and I said to each other when after I finished, and we were just chatting, and I think we were drinking a beer, having a good time. And we're like, either one of you suggest doing this ever again, I'm gonna punch you in the face. and so here in the back of my mind, I'm like, gosh, I kind of miss it. Maybe I should look at signing up next year. All I could think about was Travis going to punch me in the face if I say this out loud. But it's awesome, because it's so much fun to see people crossing that line. And you know this now, right? Like, having done that feeling and that emotion of finishing is so great. But then, like you said, like, you get done and that sort of high starts to taper off a little bit. And it's like, okay, now what? I got all this fitness. I did this huge accomplishment, and there's like this empty pit that you're just like, no, what do I do with that? Right. And so yeah, I don't know. I can't wait to hear.
I've carved out all this time too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you've rearranged your life for what, 3-4 months?
Yeah.
And you've kind of gotten into the schedule of like, oh, I have 2 hours free on a Tuesday or whatever. Like, what do I do?
Yeah. Just remember, your family will love you giving that time back to them, because you don't realize how much time you've taken away from the family until like this is all done, and then that time starts getting filled back in with the things you would have done before. Not that you'll stop training by any means, but like the volume just won't be there unless you're going to go do another one like right away. But
well, that's funny that you say that, because that was one of the things Travis and I talked about before I got on the plane to Chattanooga. I was I don't even know what the feeling, just lost when they canceled that swim. And I started thinking, okay, maybe it's important for me to know that I did the whole thing. So I was looking at whether I wanted to go to California and pay extra for one of the special entries, or if Arizona was in the cards for me. And I had made him the deal that I was going to go ride the bike regardless. I mean, we could make this a training day if it needed to be. And I was going to step out on that run and decide what I was going to do next. And almost instantly, I knew this was it. I'm not going to try to go do this again. But now I was telling my husband, I feel like my fitness is as high as it's ever been. It's way up here. On the way down, I may try to pick up an open marathon. I've never run an open marathon before. I've got the training now to do at the base fitness. So if I pick up a training block or two of some speed, what does my open marathon look like? And he's been super supportive, because he also sees me kind of wandering around. I cleaned out our basement the other day. I donated a bunch of clothes.
He's like, I kind of like tired Serena.
My son Will, he's like, Mom, stop talking so much. Go away. Why are you here bothering me?
That's
I
good.
don't understand.
That is good.
Yeah, when I'm on those down weeks too, my family goes like, "Isn't there a workout that you're supposed to be doing?" And I'm like, "No, I don't have anything to do." They're like, "Maybe you should go find something."
Find something to do. Yeah, yeah. You could always come do Mesa with us. We're going to do the half. You can do the full. We'll wait for you at the finish line. So there you go. It's always an option.
Britta, our friend, also invited me to go to Dallas. I think she's going to do the half there. Nice. But if I'm going to do this, I think the one I'm really looking at is there's one in San Diego in January that runs along the ocean, which looks fantastic to me. And several people have suggested that I might want to do the one in Memphis that benefits St. Jude. So I don't know. I first got to figure out whether I'm going to lose both my toenails and if my feet are going to be. I have not worn proper shoes since the Ironman. I mean, that was the one thing that, I mean, my toes were so sore after that marathon, and which is, I mean, I have terrible feet, and Travis can tell you that there are often days I take off my shoes and there's blood, but I've never had that like pounding on my big toe so much that the knuckle hurts, which is new for me. And it's still, I likely will lose both of my front toenails. So I should probably wait to see what happens with that before I take on a marathon training plan.
Yeah. I don't think you ever really know the full extent of the damage an Ironman does until like a good couple solid 2 or 3 weeks. And now you're in that window, right? So you're starting to figure out like, where's my body really at right now? Because I think you're kind of numb to it. The emotional high of it, the feeling of accomplishment, all that's there for a good solid week. And then that second and third week, it all starts to kind of come back around. And it's like, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot of volume. So
there's a lot of volume, a lot of time, a lot of everything. And then you're just kind of questioning, like, you're like, oh my gosh, what is going on in what's going on, you know?
Yeah, well, but I am also I'm ready for fall gravel now too. Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Yeah.
So I sent you like a little post race report, since you are my athlete or whatever. Not whatever, but you are my athlete. But I wanted to go into just some of what you thought was like, what unconventional stuff did you do like training wise? Like, so you took on to aqua jogging, which
I did.
I've not been a real big fan of. I've been a little curious of it, and you seem to have some really great results with it. So, like, give us the lowdown on aqua jogging. What's that all about?
As I've said, I don't have great feet. I tend to give myself terrible blisters. I have to be really careful about volume as it relates to plantar fasciitis, and my knees would start to hurt. And I have a very good friend also from that same running group that I met when I first moved into town, whose son is an ultra elite high school runner. And he himself is, I think has the US 4x400. He's on the relay team. They have the national record. So I mean, the guy knows what he's talking about. And he had suggested to me that I look at aqua jogging as a way to still keep my volume up. And it really has some benefits in that it helps with your muscular endurance. So if you think about it, when you're running outside, there's no resistance as you bring your leg up, right?
Yeah.
If you're in the water, that resistance is there as you go up and down. And just the volume of the water pressing in on you also helps keep your heart rate low, and you can recover faster. So I had an aqua jogging belt from before. I had purchased a program called Fluid Running. That's a coached program that I can listen to with a set of headphones in the pool. And so I would substitute some of those recovery runs with those aqua jogs. And it was amazing how much that helped both with recovery and just my ability to train through the week, because the pounding on my knees and my joints just wasn't there. So I will probably keep with the aqua jogging as I look into future running. And that was the other thing that I got out of Ironman that I haven't had in a long time, is I always started out as a runner. I came into cycling maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It was not something I did in high school or in my early 20s. It's something that's pretty new to me, but I had just burnt myself out of running. But I kind of have come back to, I really enjoy running. I enjoyed those long runs. I like to go out and just jog around with my friends. So if this is a way that helps me be able to continue doing that, I think it's a really good way for me to keep that volume at a place where my body can handle it and still do the things I want to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you were asking me early on. You're like, do you think I should aqua jog? And I was like, well, I think you should try it. I mean, if we can't keep beating up your joints, and as we get older, like we have to figure out ways to preserve our joint health and recover. And and you just basically took to it and did it basically once a week. You were aqua jogging, and you would substitute the easy stuff, or you would do like a harder effort. Like if I had like a tempo run on something on one of your runs, you would do that until we got to about the last 4 weeks, and you just started doing the more race specific stuff outside and the recovery stuff inside. So I think that was really great. And then let's see what else. The other thing is, I'm always somebody who likes to like revamp my training plans and hear stuff. So about like what you liked, what you didn't like. So this is a little behind the curtains of, I always do this to myself, but, and me and Danny talk about this kind of stuff too. When we finish a block, we're like, well, we really like these workouts, and these workouts felt like they were kind of, not worth it. So what do you feel on that, Serena? How did you feel about the overall workouts, and which ones did you like and not like so much?
So those long rides going up and down interurban, well, that was exactly what my race was. And I needed to just be able to deal with the sheer boredom of it. Those are hard on me. It's hard on my body. It's hard on just emotionally. It's hard. So I forced Travis, I think the last long ride we did before Chattanooga, to take a different route, to go out and do some hills, to go out and ride in some traffic, to be able to stop and go, different than the interurban that is certainly safer, which is important now, having ridden on a highway. But that workout emotionally, I think, was really important for me, in that I knew I could do the hills. There was not a question in my mind that I could, whatever hill was put in front of me, I could put my bike in a low enough gear that I could get up and down it. And I knew that if I had to stop or put my foot down or whatever, that wasn't going to derail my day. So I felt like just a different challenging workout on some of those longer rides was important, and valuable to me.
Yeah. So when we saw the course change, Serena was like, well, we haven't really done any of this elevation. And so I was like, all right, well, let me look at the course. The steepest hill on Chattanooga is 8%. So we went out and found 4 8% hills, I think, on the way out to Platte City. And then, so we did, in the span of 30 miles, we did almost 3K of elevation. And then we finished it out on interurban. So I was like, Serena, she's like, yeah, but we're going, of course it's, it's that, oh, we're going so slow. And I'm like, yeah, but we've also done all the elevation in the race in 30 miles. We have another, she's like, yeah, but I can't do another 70 miles of this. I'm like, nobody could do another 70 miles of this. Like, it's Ironman. They're not trying to kill you. They're just like, I'm like, you have that first big hill, which we've done 3 of already. So you can definitely get over that. And then everything else is just, just mitigating it through the whole thing. So, and the reason we switched it up, and I told her this too, is, she's like, I don't think you need it. I know you've ridden stuff harder, but I'm like, mentally, if it makes you feel better to ride this stuff and you're like okay with it mentally, then let's go out and do it. I would rather do that than just subject you to these long rides, which she does not like. She does not like riding slow, or, just passing the time, eating stuff or listening to music or whatever she does, or listening to me just jabber on about, whatever else and sing songs and stuff. Not many people like that. So
yeah, I think,
but it was good.
I think 1, 2, I mean, you'd already done all of the long interurban rides. So that last one, to your point, both your points about the mental side of it, if that gets you sort of over a mental hurdle, then that's awesome, because to your point, it's not a question of, can I get the work done on race day? You've already done all the climbing of the course. I think the benefit though of that interurban ride, as painful as it is just it forces you to stay at such a low power output. When you get all the elevation, because that's the unfortunate thing about where we live is with all the rolling hills, you tend to spike power. It's just natural. It's going to happen. And you end up not getting quite the benefit of that long, slow base effort. And of all the things you need in an Ironman is that long, slow base effort to be ready for it. So I think that was a smart move though, Serena, to kind of throw that last, climbing effort in. I don't remember how long you guys rode that day. I want to say like 5 hours, wasn't it 4 or 5 hours that day? If I remember right. So
Yeah, it was 5 hours.
yeah,
I'll pull up her stuff.
so yeah, I mean,
and I talked Travis going further than he really wanted to. We ended
Yeah.
up all the way at Fawcett.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I rarely see Travis look demoralized, but when we were standing at that gas station in Fawcett, you could just tell that he was done with this day. And we were so far from home
Yeah.
and had done all this climbing. And I felt kind of bad.
That's a lot
Yeah.
of climbing on a TT bike. So
4.5 hours
Yeah.
of work. We rode it at 0.71 intensity factor. So it was race. It was like we were, this is race pace.
Yeah.
And then we had 33,000 or 3,300 feet of elevation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And most of that was in the first 30
well, that
miles.
was, that was definitely within the first hour or so. We were at 2K for sure.
Yeah. It's just, it's so tough because, preparing for the Ironman course is so different than like what we do for gravel and anything else. Even
I think that was after I pulled my back too. I think that was, I was just coming back.
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just
whatever excuses you
tired.
need, Travis, whatever excuse.
I know.
You need.
I was just tired.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
Well, and the thing is so, not to get in the weeds, but like my bike is made, like my TT bike is not made for climbing. It's got like a 49-32.
Yeah.
So it's gearing is flat. So I have to put like 400 watts to go up some of these hills. Like it's a lot, and you can hear my bike just creaking. It's a rah, 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 rah. And so it's made to go on the TT courses fast, not
climbing.
Rolling hills fast or climbing fast. I'm not a climber. I've never ever been a climber.
You've never represented yourself as a climber, Travis. Yes, I've never heard you say I'm a climber. I'm Travis. I'm a climber.
I'm Travis. I'm a climber. I love the steep climbs. No,
you like hills. You just don't like the steep climbs. Yeah.
So
anyway, no. So that's awesome, Serena. I think good call though. I mean, if it's what sort of got you over the hump for that to just knock out any doubt at all, that's a great use of the time. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and you could kind of tell that like she needed the mental win more than she needed the training. And I'm like, she was hammering. She was so dedicated to those last 6 weeks of training that she was just like, I was like, yeah, we can do this.
I can tell you. I mean, for me, I'll just go back to myself. I know those long days up and down in urban, because I'm probably the opposite of Serena. Like for me, I wasn't sure I could mentally get through 6 hours of maintaining a lower pace on the bike, because we typically do more gravel. So it's higher intensity I could do 6 hours, but it's usually a higher intensity because I don't have to run afterwards. And so for me, like the mental aspect of having to ride for 6+ hours at a 0.7 intensity factor I wasn't sure if I could do that. Like, so I had the opposite problem as Serena. Like Serena wanted to go climb the hills. I wasn't sure if I could just go at a 0.7 for that long. So I think it just shows every athlete. This is why you get coaching, because you got to have, somebody to sort of bounce these things off of and figure out what's going to work best for you and your needs. So cool.
That was the other funny thing. Like Travis and I had a long discussion about, well, what should my race wattage be? And I was like, how about 100 watts? And
I said no.
He said, but at 100 watts, I know I can run a marathon. He says, I know you can run a marathon at much higher wattage than that.
And Serena, at 100 watts, you'd still be out there right now. So, I mean, you got to give yourself more credit than that.
You'd be starting the third loop by now.
But that was what I worried about was, do I need to ride? How slow do I need to ride to be able to do this marathon? Because I have done enough half Ironmans where I've blown it up on the bike to know that there's no coming back from that.
Yeah.
No, there's not. You blow it up on the bike and man, it suffers for sure.
Yeah. Cool. What else you got?
But and then the other, I guess we already know the answer to this. Serena's one and done.
Yeah, no, as I reflect back on 2024, here's what I know. I know I did some really amazing things. Did some really hard things. I'm so proud of my accomplishments, but I don't need to be exercising for more than 4 hours. I just know that. That's where the joy dies for me.
Yep, that's where Serena turns into cranky Serena, and we just like she's like, I
Yeah,
don't want to be out
so-
here anymore, and we're like, yeah, we're almost done.
Now I know that, and
Yeah.
so we have a friend who would love a training partner. So if she really wants to do a 70.3 next year, maybe I'll do that. A 50-mile gravel race is a delightful distance for me. I can run a marathon in 4-ish hours. So I think it's time to just kind of maybe surrender the ultra endurance while I know my body can do it. Again, the joy dies at about 4 hours for me.
Yeah.
Fair. That's
I
fair.
think that's good. I mean, it's one of those things where you learn something about yourself, right? Like that's why we do these hard things, because then you learn like, yeah, I'm not a big fan of this. So then you're like, I want to go do the things I really like doing and really specialize in that. And I think you should. I think you should do, the 50-mile gravel races. I think that's where you really kind of excel at. And I think that's kind of like your wheelhouse of, where you can see some improvements, and then, yes, give this marathon, this, early next year marathon a try and see how you like just the open marathon, and then we can say which one's harder. I always felt that the open marathons are always harder than just doing the Ironman marathon.
Yeah, they're definitely higher intensity. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
So
well, and the other thing too is while I loved this training and it taught me so much about myself, it's just not fair to my family. I have 3 kids who have all of these other things. And I was telling Travis, I may have a cross country star on my hands, so maybe I'll be running with him. Turns out he's like the 3rd fastest middle school kid in his district with 0 training. So
0 training, he just shows up, which is great.
He just shows up.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I may be running with him some, but I'm so thankful that they were so supportive and so proud of me to let me do this. But they need and I need lower volume at least at this stage in our lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the balance, right? I mean, it's and you don't realize, and that's why I said, I mean, you talk about having the extra time right now, you're going to give that time back to your family, and then it's going to kind of all fill back in. And I think it's really hard to think about another Ironman. Well, for me anyway, I can't speak for everybody. For me, it was really hard to think about another Ironman even 2 months after the first one. Like, it's just the motivation, because to your point, Serena, the volume, it's just so much, and like the motivation to go back into that torture chamber just really isn't there. But I will say, having now, it's a year later, a little over a year later, and watching, like I said, the video, and it's kind of like, wow, maybe I do want to go do that again and see if I can get an improvement over last time. So I'll be interested to see if as maybe 6 months, a year from now, if you start to change, like, because your family dynamics will change, right? You may be more busy, and you say, no, there's no way in hell this is going to happen. Or maybe you find like, hey, you know what? I do have a little bit of ability to, like, maybe you start running with your son, and you're like, well, geez, this is really good. Maybe I want to do another Ironman. So I can't wait. I think it's going to be really interesting.
And I have to give Travis all the kudos on this. Is I did not expect to arrive at the finish line healthy and not injured. I really believed that this was going to destroy my body, and there was going to be no coming back from it. I've done that to myself several times, and Steph and Tara were just really in awe of how well I recovered. We were able to the next day go for a walk and march around the airport. I mean, I think Tara was really prepared to pull me around in a wagon. So
she's like, let me get the wheelchair for you.
Yeah. And I mean, I walked off the course. I pushed my bike up the hill. I mean, I am so thankful for the training that we did and my body's ability to absorb it and recover. So I was not expecting to feel this good post Ironman.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a testament to the amount of work that you had going into it. I laid out the plan, and you signed off on it, and your husband signed off on it, and and that's the one thing I told you guys to, like, I was like, you're gonna be extremely tired. I can't make you less tired than you are going to be training, but it's all going to be worth it because you're going to be able to move after you get done with an Ironman.
Mm-hmm.
The Ironman's going to just be the execution, and you just go out and do it. And I wish there was another way. I wish I could think of another way of doing it, but then again, I see so many people end up in the med tent after a race like this, and I definitely did not want you to be there in the med tent, because I've seen you in the med tent before, and I was like, that's not good. And so I would watch your comments on every single workout and just make sure that we were, and I would go in there. If they were kind of trending towards the negative, I would adjust some stuff down. And if they seemed positive, we would adjust some stuff up. And then, just kind of, it was that balance. But I mean, that's what you get with coaching, right? You get somebody who's watching your workouts, every single workout, and I'm paying attention to your comments. That's why I tell people, even all my athletes, that it's so important that you comment, because that's the first line of defense. When I know you are, when you come back with, even if it's just like, oh, one of the kids was doing this and one of the kids was doing that, and then I had these parents at this game were just ridiculous, and I was like, oh, there's a little bit of negativity in there, so let me back some stuff up. Or you're just like, oh my gosh, the weather outside was great, and I had this beautiful day, and I saw this bird, and I'm like, okay, she had a really great run. Like, it doesn't even have to be about the workout. It's just, you can just tell a lot from, once and me and Serena have been working together for 3 years now or something like that, like 3 or 4 years. And so, like, when she comments stuff, like, I pay attention to it. That's the first thing I look at, is to see what her comment is. And then I go and look through the data, and just because sometimes she'll have like a question and stuff like that. But yeah, I think getting to her, I mean, that was the first task that she said, was that I need to show up to this race healthy. And I was like, that's what we're going to do. And so we really worked on making sure that she didn't overdo anything. And we did spend a lot of time on your bike fit, and a lot of time on figuring out the run and all this other stuff. So I am happy. Like, I am happy that you made it through, and that you were able to walk, because that's the best part. After you get done with an Ironman, and then you see all the other people that are finishing, and you're just doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just that's Ironman. It's just the community.
Yep.
So
Yeah, there were so many people who helped me get there too. I mean, I need to go back and send Mike Irwin a chocolate cake or something. I mean, he also helped me so much with the bike fit and let me try so many saddles. And those were the little things, I think, that made the difference too. And then, which shoes do I want to wear? Which shorts are the best ones? All of those tiny details that came together on that last day, and that I knew that I could stomach the Martin gel if I had to, because Diane's like, here, Serena, they're having a sale on Mortal Nutrition and Martin gels. Buy them to know whether you can stomach them. Like, all those little details, and all those people who supported me along the way helped me to the result that was incredibly positive. And I've heard some people who didn't have that great result. So I'm really thankful for that as well.
Yeah. Well, good. Do you have anything else, Serena, other than we'll be hearing from you about your marathon training?
Yeah. Well, and Big Sugar's coming up. I'm excited for that.
We'll do a race preview for that.
To Bentonville, and it's a course I've ridden before. It's really beautiful. I'm excited to see what Travis thinks of it, because it is his sort of course. I think that was the first thing Danny and I both said as we stepped off that course last year, was this is a race that Travis needs to race. So I'm excited for that. There's a little gravel race, which I've really come to love, these local races in Hutchinson, Kansas, where my husband is from, the first week of November, that I'm looking forward to, that I plan to race. And then we'll kind of see what shakes out for me from there. But it's time for fall gravel.
Yep.
Awesome.
Well, Well, great. I don't have anything else. Danny, you got anything?
No. Good job,
right,
Serena.
man.
Congrats
Thank
again.
you.
Yep.
I couldn't have made it there without you guys. Again, this is not something you take on all by yourself.
You did all the hard work. So
Yeah, you did the whole thing, man. I mean, you put in the work, and like I was saying, you were the one who was consistent. So this is, we all did our parts trying to support you and help you out, and we're just super pumped for your accomplishment. Really excited for you. So enjoy it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, if you like what we are doing here, leave a like, rate us, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow and finds us more SufferSooner squad mates. And remember, when the finish line feels impossibly far away, we don't give up, we push harder, we dig deeper, and we find solace in the knowledge that our suffering is temporary and our resilience is forever.